call this meeting of the Northeast Independent School District to order. Let the record show that a quorum of board members is present, that this meeting has been duly called, and that notice of this meeting has been posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code, Chapter 551. The board will now adjourn into executive session pursuant to the following sections of the Texas Open Meetings Act. 551.071, private consultation with the board's attorney. 551.072, discussing purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property. 551.074, to discuss personnel or to hear complaints against personnel. And 551.076, to discuss the detection security audit, and the time is 5:30. The board will now convene into open session, and the time is 6:58. On behalf of the trustees, I would like to welcome you to this evening's meeting of the Northeast Independent School Board. This is a business meeting of the board held in public. We appreciate your attendance and request your respectful attention. We welcome your comments during the Matters from the Floor section of the agenda. If you signed up to address a specific action agenda item, you will be called at that time. We wish to emphasize that this is a business meeting of the board, and while those in attendance may disagree about issues, it is our expectation that everyone will conduct themselves in a respectful and professional manner. Disruptions to this meeting by anyone will not be tolerated. In the event any person or group disrupts the meeting, a warning will be given to stop any disruptive behavior. Anyone persisting in disruptive behavior will be removed from the meeting. The board may also call a recess in the event of persistent disruptions so that individuals who engage in disruptions can be removed. It is our intent to conduct the meeting in an orderly fashion. Finally, I would like to remind you that it is the mission of Northeast to challenge and encourage each student to achieve and demonstrate academic excellence, technical skills, and responsible citizenship. Item 5, Invocation and Pledge of Allegiance. A, Eisenhower Middle School, Mr. Herrera.
Good evening, Madam President, board members, Dr. Micah, executive staff, and guests. My name is Jason Herrera, and I am the proud principal of Eisenhower Middle School. Tonight, it is my pleasure to introduce two amazing Ike Generals. Tonight, providing the invocation is 8th grader Morgan Mowry. Joining Morgan tonight is her mother, Mrs. Kara Mowry, and her father, Mr. Chad Mowry. Morgan and Mr. and Mrs. Mowry, would you please stand and be recognized? Morgan Mowry is one of our amazing leaders among our Ike family. She excels in and out of the classroom and helps all those around her. She is an athlete who has competed in all sports this year, is a pal, is on the yearbook committee, and is also on the Mayor's Fitness Council. She strives for excellence in everything she does, all while being a positive light for all those around her. She is an inspiration for all our students. Thank you, Morgan, for being an Ike General. Leading the Pledge of Allegiance and the Texas Pledge is 8th grader Grant Reich. Joining Grant tonight is his mother, Mrs. Janie Reich, and his father, Dr. Scott Reich. Grant and Mr. and Mrs. Reich, would you please stand and be recognized? Grant Reich is a perfect example of a student athlete at Eisenhower Middle School. Not only does he maintain an A average in his classes, but he competes and excels in many sports on campus, such as football and track. When Grant is not working hard on his academics or athletics, he can be found donating his time helping with community service, such as campus beautification days, where he has helped contribute to cleaning up around Eisenhower and maintaining several campuses in the Churchill cluster. He is very devoted and hardworking with anything that he puts his mind to. The future is very bright for this young man. Congratulations, Grant. So at this time, I will call up Morgan, who will have our invocation for the evening.
Good evening. Please stand and bow your heads. Heavenly Father, thank you for bringing us each here safely tonight. We thank you for our leaders on our school board and for our schools. We ask you to guide and protect our students, teachers, and campus leaders as we work to learn and grow each day. We pray that you continue to direct our leaders to make the best decisions for our students and staff. May we continue to honor you with our words and actions each day. Amen. Thank you.
Please join us for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing for the Texas pledge. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Morgan and Grant, if you'll come forward, please, because we have certificates and we'd like to take your picture with Dr. Micah and Mrs. Huey. And I want to thank you both for being here. Thank you for the inspiration. I want to thank y'all for being here. You're welcome to stay, but you're also welcome to leave. Thank you. Item 6, recognitions. A, President's remarks on acknowledgement of special calendar events. This week is National Educational Diagnostician Week. And then I'm going to announce some things that'll be in April before our next board meeting. So April 4th is School Librarian Appreciation Day. April 5th is Paraprofessional Appreciation Day. And April 3rd through the 7th is National Assistant Principal Week. So if you see all of these people, please thank them for everything that they do for us. Item B, UIL Girls 6A State Wrestling Medalist, Mr. Parker.
President Groen and Board, tonight we would like to recognize our state medalist in the UIL 6A State Wrestling Tournament, which was held a couple weeks ago. Tonight from Madison High School, we have Chloe Overgay. Come on up, Chloe. Chloe wrestled in the girls' 140-pound weight class and was a bronze medalist. And by the way, this is her coach, Coach George Rodriguez.
Congratulations again. C, UIL Girls 6A State Swim Meet Medalist, Mr. Parker.
At this time, we'd like to recognize 3 ladies who also participated at the UIL 6A State Swim Meet and came home with several medals. We will start with Jada Scott. Jada Scott was a state champion, won gold medal in the girls 50 freestyle and the girls 100 breaststroke. And with Jada tonight is her coach, Jesse Snelson. The next one we'd like to recognize is Monte Spillman. Monte Spillman was a state champion, gold medalist in the girls 100 butterfly, and also a bronze medalist in the girls 200 freestyle from Reagan High School. And her coach is also here, Coach Michael Rourke. Next, from Churchill High School, we have Carly Cronk, who was the silver medalist in the girls 200 freestyle. And her coach tonight is also here, Coach Mark Jetto.
Item 7, matters from the floor. The trustees welcome comments from members of the public during this time of the meeting. Generally, board members do not respond to public comments during the meeting, although members may request further information or a future agenda item on a matter raised during public comment. As explained fully in the board's written procedures for this time, the matters from the floor portion is a limited public forum. Accordingly, speakers may present on a topic related to district business for up to 3 minutes, but are not permitted to make 1, personal complaints about an individual staff or board member that should be raised using the district's grievance policies, 2, a personnel action, 3, a student disciplinary matter, 4, a complaint about a particular student, 5, or pending litigation. Any person who persists in speaking on these topics after being directed not to do so will lose the remainder of their time to speak and may lose their privilege of addressing the board at future meetings. If you sign up to speak on a specific agenda item, you will be called up when the board reaches that item. Please remember that this is a business meeting of the board. Any person or group engaging in outbursts of any kind, causing a disruption to the meeting, will be warned, and if they persist, will be removed from the meeting. This is to ensure that all speakers have an opportunity to make comments without interruption and that the board members are able to pay full attention to speakers without any distractions. We also welcome written comments at any time, either through email at board@neisd.net or by mail care of the superintendent's office at 8961 Tesoro Drive, 6th floor, San Antonio, Texas, 78217. Ms. Huey.
Number 1,
Good evening, President Grona, School Board, Dr. Micah, and executive staff. My name is Katie Brown, and I'm on the Northeast Council of PTA's board. And on behalf of the board, we want to thank those board members, superintendents, executive staff, and administrators who attended the Northeast ISD Council of PTA's Founders Day celebration last month. Your attendance was appreciated as Council honored those who have made outstanding contributions to the students of our district. Local PTAs selected for recognition teachers, cafeteria staff, crossing guards, grandparents, parents, and community members whose efforts all help to make this a great school district for our children. Founders Day also highlights a different high school campus each year. This year, we were entertained by the exceptionally talented students at Churchill. Mariachis greeted guests along with the drumline, cheer, and dance squads. Recipients and guests were delighted to see a portion of the theater department's production of My Fair Lady. Typically, Founders Day is the first Thursday in February, and we hope to see all of you at next year's event at the featured campus, Johnson High School. Thank you so much.
Number 2,
Good evening, President Grona, members of the board, Dr. Micah. I'm Patsy Esterline representing Northeast AFT. Last month, the school board approved a waiver for one of the 2 bad weather days. We urge the board to approve the other day as other districts have done. NEISD teachers work extremely hard and they work long days, putting in extra time above and beyond. During the bad weather days, many worked some or all of those 2 days at home, using that time for planning and just catching up. And please appeal the commissioner's decision. I now understand that since Northeast has adopted days and minutes, they are only able to get the 1-day waiver. I will put aside my desire to go after Morath after talking with Dr. J. I would also like to speak on the situation at the legislature. The only major issue is the state budget. We are lobbying for catching up funding to be provided, as well as adding funding needed for educational excellence. We have been sending small groups to meet with legislators to approve a $10,000 raise per teacher and raise hourly employees to at least $15 an hour. Our union stands ready to work with you on funding issues. Just let us know how we can be supportive. And I apologize for going through puberty in front of you. So, thank you.
Number 3,
President Grona, school board members, Dr. Micah. My name is Karen Lenartz. I was discouraged a few weeks ago when I watched a Facebook video of Mr. Hilliard speaking at the Camino Real Republican women's group. I was taken aback by your speaking on board matters at a political meeting. While speaking, you encouraged parents to spend an hour weekly submitting open records requests. Open records requests should not be used for frivolous requests. It is not only disrespectful to those who have to do the work, but it is also a waste of our taxpayer dollars.
Number 4. I'm sorry. What? Number 4. Okay. Number 5.
Hello, my name is Jennifer Tomini. My daughter goes to Longs Creek Elementary. On February 6th, I came to my first ever school board meeting to defend someone who was wrongfully accused, never investigated, and forced to resign. Since that meeting, I have found out some interesting and very concerning things happening at Longs Creek, one of which being the issue of a weapon being turned into a teacher one morning and an email never being sent out to parents. In fact, the day before this, there was a gun scare that was investigated and found to be just a scare. We got an email on that. Then the next day, the knife was turned in and never emailed to parents. Now, I know this happened when the AP was there, and I'm sure it'll be turned into, well, the AP should have emailed the parents. However, he handles scares and behavioral issues, but the principal is responsible for communicating with us parents, correct? After all the tragedies happening at all the schools, nobody should be keeping a weapon being found on an elementary school campus a secret. She's telling kids and teachers not to tell us parents things that are happening on campus. Where's the safety protocol? If more parents were aware of this, you'd have this place filled with angry people. Then there's the pornography issue. Kids exposing themselves out in front of everyone, kids bringing pornographic pictures to show friends. Then there's the kids who are stabbing a teacher in the back with a pencil, kicking, punching students, throwing rocks at other kids, given a snack to calm down and sent back to the classroom. I said last month that I don't feel safe that my daughter is at the school without the AP. I feel this so much that I've told my daughter she's not allowed to be alone in the principal's office for any reason, for fear she might try to get at me through her, which is exactly how the teachers feel. Where's the investigation into all of these issues? What is it going to take for you as a board to decide something has to change? Does a student need to be stabbed? I guarantee that if you went and started pulling teachers in one by one, with just you and them, you would hear all about the struggles and issues. 17 faculty are ready to walk out of our doors when this year is over, not to mention the number of parents that will be pulling and school choicing or homeschooling their kids. Thank you for your time and attention.
Number 6. My name is Julie Paduska, and I am a substitute teacher for the district and a parent of a 4th grade student at Longs Creek Elementary. Last month, I'm here again asking for you to please send people, district staff, to the Longs Creek School to speak to the faculty and staff and investigate their concerns. Teachers and students are being hit, kicked, and attacked by students, and the students are not being punished. Instead, they are taken out of the classroom for a short time and then given a prize or a treat before they are taken back to class. Then they repeat the behavior so that they can have the same outcome. This is happening on all grade levels. There are other things going on that I cannot talk about because I will identify the staff member that has confided in me. I can tell you that the principal has made numerous racial comments to teachers and about teachers to parents since she has started at Longs Creek in 2021. I can tell you that the principal has told parents there is nothing that she can do to prevent the specific children from hurting their child, and thus the child can continue to hurt his classmates with no repercussions. I can tell you that the teachers will not follow the correct procedure in the grievance process because the grievances go directly to the person that they have a problem with. They are afraid of retaliation. Not outright retaliation that can be pinpointed, but passive retaliation. For example, there was an incident on campus where the principal thought that I had called in an anonymous tip about a safety threat on campus. She went to the involved teacher and told the teacher to cancel all of my sub jobs that I have booked with the teacher and not to allow me to sub in her class again. When I confronted the principal about this, she denied it and said that the teacher must have misunderstood and that she had never said anything like that. I believe the principal is trying to get me off of the campus as a substitute because I am there so often and I see what is happening, and she is trying to keep parents from knowing what is going on at our school. Even more of an example is the issue with our assistant principal being recommended for termination. She was able to have him removed from the campus regardless of the fact that there was another witness to the situation that contradicted her statement. For some reason, the district decided there was no need to come to campus and to talk to this witness or ask any other employees about the assistant principal's character. They ignored the fact that he had a stellar record as a teacher and an assistant principal. They just listened to the principal and recommended terminating him. This is what the teachers are scared of. They are scared of losing their jobs and no one in the district looking into why they were terminated. When something similar happened at Longs Creek back in 2012, the district put the principal on administrative leave and sent HR personnel to the campus to investigate concerns to school management and environment. The district spokesman at the time said it was standard practice to remove employees from their assignment while inquiries are done to protect the employees from potential accusations and interferences. Why is the district not doing that this time? Why is this standard practice being ignored? Why are teachers being forced to learn and work in an unsafe environment? This principle is affecting the health and safety of the students and the teachers at Longs Creek. I urge you to make the district do their job and investigate on campus what is happening at Longs Creek. Thank you.
Number 7.
Good evening. My name is Maria Navarro, and I am my daughter Ariel Mahalik works at Johnson School District, Johnson High School, and my grandchildren attend Longs Creek Elementary. I am a realtor by profession, and I am forced to do my job through Code of Ethics. Everything I've seen and heard that's happened at Longs Creek with the principal, there's so many violations with the Code of Ethics, and I'm wondering, do teachers have Code of Ethics? Is it something that you have to abide by, or is it just something that's just thrown? And I'm being honest. I'm being sincere. It's just something that's just suggested, because everything I see, it's just so many situations that have happened. Last year, I was sent with another child that was my grandson's friend. They shoved him into my car. He was scared. He was crying. I called his mom, called his dad. We delivered them. The school wouldn't have not known until I told him. My grandson was crying, petrified of being sent to the principal's office. I don't know why. I had a meeting with her. Nothing happened. I've heard about the gun issue. There's just so many things that are happening that are concerning. Teachers, young teachers, crying at meetings because they're afraid of their jobs. When my kids were going to school, they had the blue ribbon school, I guess, accreditations. We don't hear that anymore at Longs Creek. It's just everything is bare minimum. The morale is just so low with the teachers. It's just sad. It's such a sad situation, and she's allowed to get away with that. And it's just something has to happen. 17 teachers, 42% of the teachers are quitting at the end of the year. I've told my daughter, get them out of that school. I mean, it's not worth risking them. With the Uvalde shooting and everything that happened last year, we felt safe with the assistant principal. Now he's gone. I'm afraid for my children. I didn't send them. I told my daughter not to send them to school on Friday. We get a letter today from the principal. Your kids are not at school. You need to follow school policy. It's like, when does she follow policy? You know, it's just, she's a principal that gets away with everything, and she needs to be investigated. Everything is just. I don't want to be racist or anything, but when I was at the parent meeting, I was like, what school are we in? Are we at East LA? You know, that's, for movies, that's a demographically crime-ridden school district. And this is happening at Longs Creek Elementary, and it shouldn't be happening. Something needs to be done. Thank you very much for your time.
Number 8.
Good evening. This is first time attending a meeting. My name is Ryan Walker. I'm a parent of 2 children at Longs Creek. Since the beginning of the school year, my children have both, my daughter especially, who's a kindergartner, has been physically assaulted and verbally abused by a fellow student in her class. 5 of those physical altercations have been documented. There's countless more that were not documented. My son has been bullied to the point of not wanting to talk to us about it. It wasn't until we found out from a third party that this was going on with my child. And then we were able to get him to talk to us and tell us what was going on. And when having the meeting with the principal, she downplayed it as it was just boys being boys. I'm sorry, but with what my son told me, that's not what was going on. He was being bullied. And my daughter, physically assaulted. No. Within the first 9 weeks, both of my children were coming home and begging me and my wife not to send them back to school, that they were fearing for their safety. What are y'all gonna do about it? You have not a situation, not an issue. You have a crisis regarding the safety of these children and of the staff at this school, and nothing is being done. I've had meetings with the principal, and all she can do is tell me, I assure you we are working on a plan. I'm tired of hearing, I assure you we're working on a plan. How long does it take to come up with a plan? Next week is spring break. We're going to be in the last 9 weeks of the school year. What are we doing? We shouldn't even be here. We shouldn't be having this discussion. It's very sad that this has come to this. And my children's safety is the utmost importance to me. And I do not feel like sending them back. I'm ready to pull them out and be done. So I'm asking y'all, I'm ready to file my grievances. I'm pleading with you, please investigate this school. Look into what is going on and why nothing has been done yet. Please. Thank y'all.
And that's all for now.
I think number 9, you signed up for the grievance process, and that's an actual agenda item.
Okay. Can I not speak during the citizens to be heard? That was just the topic that I'm speaking on.
You didn't want to speak when you sign up for a specific agenda item, you speak at that time, or that's not?
I'll wait. I mean,
okay.
I have nothing better to do this evening, so I'll wait.
Item 8, matters from executive session. A, personnel including but not limited to administrative appointments pursuant to Government Code Section 551.074. 1, possible action regarding routine personnel including but not limited to administrative appointments, no action. 2, possible action regarding proposed recommendation for termination of Chapter 21 term contract employee. Do I have a motion to approve as discussed in executive session?
Second.
You gotta move it first.
Oh, sorry.
So
moved.
Yeah, so moved.
Thank you, Ms. Villarreal. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed?
Nay.
The motion carries. Item 9, presentations. A, intruder detection audit by Texas School Safety Center. Dr. Micah.
Thank you, Madam President. As I discussed with you all in executive session, we had 8 more campuses that were audited by the Texas School Safety Center. 5 of them were clean audits. 3 of them did have a finding. All findings were addressed the day of the finding.
Okay. Item B, enrollment analysis.
Thank you. That is me as well. So last meeting, Ms. Villarreal, you had asked some questions regarding enrollment. And so this evening, what I'm bringing to you is a presentation. Jason, are you going to be able to click, or you need me to sit over there? You're good? Okay. So what I'm bringing you today is just really some information that has been shared over the years. Some of you up here that have been on longer have seen some of these slides. Some of them are new, but I think it's good just for the whole group to see this again. So can you shoot on? So this is some pretty interesting information. So what you're taking a look here, this is based on the census reporter, as you can see on the bottom, but this was real interesting. So when you look at the population of Bexar County, we got a little over 2 million. And so, but Northeast has 437,000. The reason I say that is because land-wise, we make up about 11% of Bexar County. yet its population, we make up about 22%. So we are a very populated, dense area in the community. Some other, just some interesting items up here, just a little bit about our community, right? As you can see when you look at educational attainment, we're a very educated community, not surprising, but almost 40% of our folks have a bachelor's or above, compared to Bexar County at 30, and then you can take a look at the city of San Antonio right at 27. Another interesting piece that I've talked about over the years is median value of the homeowner, right? So I want you to know these, again, these numbers are a little bit old. They're not taking into account today. I know appraisals went up last year and we all talked about it. But you can see there, even our median value is higher than the average, right, of the rest of the area. Do you mind jumping to the next one? Some other, this is an old slide, but again, worth re-showing. What this shows is really the census data every 10 years, right, going up. And so as you can see, between 1990 and 2000, we had almost 20% growth. Then we saw almost 20% growth again between 2000 and 2010. And then as you can see between this last one, we really slowed down to 8.6%. And I've said this before, but I'm going to re-say it again. Of our total population, 72% of our occupied housing do not have children under the age of 18. So that's a lot of our single-family homes that do not have school-age children. In 2010, so that was 65%. So here's another way to take a look. This is really showing home starts, right? And so from 98 to 07, our district experienced really tremendous growth in new single-family homes, as you can see up here. About 2,400 to 3,600 actually per year. And so lots of folks were building. We had a lot of empty land to go on. And then you can see in 07, which is up there, and I know that those, I'm glad I'm wearing my glasses. That print's pretty small. We really saw a sharp downturn at that point. You know, you can see a little peak there in 13, a small peak in 15, again, another smaller peak in 17. But we've really slowed down a lot in our things because, well, quite frankly, we just don't have a lot of empty land anymore. And then, you know, one of the questions that I've been asked off and on over my time is, what we do see getting built a lot of in our school district are multifamily housing, right? And there is a real belief out there that when you see a big apartment complex pop up, that you're going to see this large influx of children. That's just simply not true. We do not see very many school-age children coming from our apartment complexes. We just don't. Now, I think the question always becomes why. You know, I'm not sure why, but there just aren't children in those apartments. You know, I can play off of my own experience when my wife and I, before we had children, we lived in a townhouse. But the moment we really started thinking about kids and stuff, we went and bought a house. We didn't stay to have kids in an apartment, right? So that could be part of it. Jason, you mind jumping the next one? I think this is a real interesting slide that I showed some of you a while back, but I think, again, it's just worth taking a look at. Now, I want you to understand that number of parcels reviewed. In other words, we did not look at every single home in that area. But what I asked our folks was to take a look at average growth in property values throughout our district, broken up by our 7 very distinct communities, right? Because, you know, a lot of people think their property value has exploded, but when you take a look, just look at where you're seeing the highest sales price of properties. It's over in your area, Ms. Villarreal, 87%. That's how much it's jumped. I think you and I spoke about that a little while ago when I was driving through there and realized how many homes were being turned around and being refixed up. It's really driving them up. After that, it's the Roosevelt, right? And so in 2022, The average market value now for a single family residence in Northeast is $325,357. And that just keeps going up every year. When you think about that as a young family, that's a very high price to pay for a brand new home. Especially when you can go to the north, to the east, to the west, and you can find new homes. What are you going to get here in Northeast at 325? Probably isn't going to be a brand new home. It's going to be something that needs, that's older. It just is. And so, that's just an interesting piece of information. Can you jump to the next one? So let's bring it back to our place in Bexar County. And so I asked our folks to put together something because I think it's interesting when we talk about, what's going on in Northeast, but more importantly, what's going on in Bexar County. So can you click the button the first time? So what you see there on the screen, those blue dots, are traditional public schools. That is where, Northeast has our campuses, Northside, so forth and so on. And as you can see, it gets pretty dense right around where population is, right? I mean, that's just kind of how it goes. But that wasn't just enough. Can you just wait there? Well, you can hit it. That's fine. So then I asked, well, that's all of our traditional schools. So now if you'll click it, Jason. Now those are all the charter offerings within Bexar County. All right? So you can see. And here's one thing that when I look back at our median home income, right, in Northeast at $70,000, the one thing that comes when you make a little bit more money is you have resources at your disposal to use. And so, while you can take a look at the charter choice within our district, a lot of those charters aren't that far away from us. So you can find ways in which to get them over there. I've told many of you on this board before, I've been to an HEB in the morning and watched limousine buses pull up. And there's 3 of them. And those limousine charters are shuttling kids over into the medical center. That's what happens when you have some resources. You can make that. One of the pieces there is free busing, and that kind of stuff isn't there, right? So just so you know, there are 110 charter campuses in Bexar County. Okay? You mind hitting the next one now, Jason? Now, if you take a look, you see the triangles. Those purple triangles represent the private schools that are available in Bexar County. Do you notice how all of these dots are really starting to congest around certain areas? That's really about where population density is, right? There are 74 private schools in Bexar County educating about 18,000 kids currently. You can just tell, just take a look at that, the volume of choice across the Bexar County area. All right? Do you mind hitting the next slide, Jason? So here are some interesting numbers about the Education Service Center. Because as you know, Northeast and Bexar County is part of Region 20, what we call Region 20. As you can see, there's the 20 different regions across the state. Region 20, just our little region there, is serving close to 500,000 students in 593 ISD campuses and 115 charter campuses. You may wonder why there's no private in there. The Region Center does not service private schools, all right? So you can just take a look there at the numbers, right? So you mind hitting the next one, Jason? So this has been interesting because I can remember when I first came up, Commissioner Morath was really going around talking a lot about the explosive growth in Texas of school-aged children. And so this next handful of slides are really from him because he is changing that narrative. So just when our district, take a look at this now. So you can see this line, right, of enrollment growth in Texas projected over to decline, right? So just when our district was growing, as you can see from the fall of 2010 going up, so was the state of Texas. They were growing just kind of like we were. And then you can see that dip, and that was with COVID. Numbers dropped. The state is expecting the growth to decline in coming years based on two main factors. All right? A decline in birth rates and a slowdown in in-migration from outside the state. So I'm going to say that again. The state is expecting the growth to decline in coming years across our state based on two factors, a decline in birth rates and a slowdown of in-migration from outside the state. So Jason, let's take a look at birth rates, all right? So again, I apologize, it's really small, not my slides. So Texas is experiencing declining birth rates across all groups. So as you can see, Hispanic, African American, Asian Pacific Islander, and white. They are all declining in birth rates. So why am I showing you this? Look at which race ethnicity group is dropping the most. It's Hispanics. All right? They're slowing their birth rates. Why is that important? Well, 61% of our population, of our kids, are Hispanic. So that's huge. Our next largest student population is white. As you can see, it's dropping. And then it's African American. These trends will certainly, and I believe, are going to continue to impact enrollment in our district and across this state as birth rates are slowing down. Go to the next slide, Jason. So now, that second factor is this concept of in-migration. So students coming in from outside the state and peace, right? So as you can see, this is a really interesting graphic that he showed. So the blue line is they left Texas public schools or couldn't be tracked. And then the orange line, they entered Texas public schools. Do you notice what happens in like 2020, 2021? Really before then, 1920. They cross. That is the first time ever across the state that our in-migration didn't grow and continue to increase the enrollment in our schools with the number of kids leaving. Do you see, you following me on this one? Like, that's the first time that they saw this. So again, we saw more students leave Texas public schools than entered from out of state. That's lagging data, so I'll be interested to see if the in-migration picks up over time. So are we going to see this change? I know I've listened to the news like many of you and have heard, the influx coming to Texas. What this is showing us is it's simply not, it's been slowing down over some time. Go to the next one, Jason. So for those of you that can recall, and even the new board members that came on recently, I talked about my 3 priorities when I took over. One of them being competing in an educational marketplace, right? Even back then, I was highly attuned to the fact that we were competing. This was no longer, there were a lot of options out there for parents. So as you can see, magnet programs in schools, intra-district transfers, of course, they can move in among us. But also remember this, that districts, many of them around the San Antonio area, have opened their borders, right? Now, look, we have always lost some kids to different magnet programs in other districts, the health careers. But we've also gained some kids from other districts because we have some open enrollment magnets, right? But what we've seen now is not just moving, but an explosion, just like we created ICSI, right? Other districts are creating new magnet programs, and they're opening them up to our students to go there. And so that's a piece, right? That's that open enrollment component. There have been a lot of charters that have been added, something that I don't know that people totally understand is once a charter school earns its charter and it's granted, they really can expand how they wish to expand. There's no more cap on it. Once they granted, they can start figuring out where they wish to go, right? Of course, you saw the piece on private schools, and then something that we saw through the pandemic that's really some new choice that have entered the marketplace is virtual online schools. Like, we have seen a lot of those popping up, and people looking at those and seeing that that could be a good fit for them. And of course, we've talked also about homeschool. A lot of folks, I've even talked to some parents that said, you know what, I'd rather teach my child at home. It works for our family. I'm working from home now. We can do this, and we get to go out and take tours and engage in different things. And yeah, I mean, that's a total option. I was down at the Whitty Museum one day, and there were a ton of kids in there, and I thought, I wonder what school is going on, and it was homeschool. That's who was there that day. It was just a large group of homeschool because folks like them that think like them have connected and found ways to support one another through it, right? Can you go to the next one, Jason? So let's take a look. So look, choice creates mobility, right? So TEA tracks transfers in and out of districts and publishes a transfer report. The most recent report available includes 21-22 data. Transfers, so I got to read this to make sure I say it right. Transfers refer to students who attend campuses different than their campuses of residence. Okay? Got me? Because I had to read this a couple times as we went through it. TEA's explanation about why charters are not in the transfer in report is because a charter school cannot be a student's district or campus of residence. So transfers out to listings are not provided for charter schools. All right? I will tell you, I never really knew that. This was good for me to learn as we went through it, right? So can you hit the button, Jason? So let me bring this closer to home. So let's look at this over time, right? Of those who live within our boundaries and have transferred out to a charter school. Here's what struck me. Now, I have asked superintendents, I've asked people in this district, when did we start losing students to charter schools? Pretty much universally, I hear 5, 6, maybe 7 years ago at max. Folks, take a look. In the 11-12 school year, almost 4,000 kids had already selected to go to a charter. All right? That is before even a real influx was seen in the San Antonio area to charters. So as you can see, take a look here, you can see it across as that's going on. Why didn't we notice this back then? See, this was the question I had. How did we miss it? Think back, though, to that slide of in-migration and enrollment. Like, things were just, we were still gaining enough students. There were enough home starts. We were gaining enough that it was getting offset. The reason I point that out is as I look at data from districts around us, they're in currently what we were in back in 13, 14, like way back. They're not seeing the fact that, yes, you're gaining, but you're not gaining at the rate you should be gaining. Because this phenomena of in-migration versus a loss, right, is happening. And you're getting enough that you offset this loss. But at some point, for us, that hit in the, take a look, you can see it. In 13, 14, we hit our peak at 68,206. And then we started declining. That's when we no longer could offset the loss by the growth. All right? Go to the next one, Jason. So we also lose, as I explained, students to other school districts. And as I stated to you, some open borders, others have open magnets. Take a look. Look at this. ISD's transferring out. Now, I want you to understand, this could mean that they relocated to Dallas. All right? This does not mean that they went next door somewhere. This is somewhere they have moved within the state of Texas to another ISD. All right? So you can't jump to the conclusion that it's like our neighbor. But it's an interesting that we're seeing. Now, this is something that we had talked about during COVID, is with people losing their jobs and things, what was this going to do? Was this going to displace families, going back to that whole piece of it's expensive to live in our school district? Could people continue to afford it? Could that be playing into it? Could be. I don't know it, but I wonder, could that have had an impact on it, right? Jason, do you mind hitting the next slide? So, and here are the totals with the charter and the ISD put together. So as you can see in 11-12, when you put the number going to an ISD and the number going to a charter, at that point in time, 4,700 had already choiced out in some manner. But again, shocking because nobody really, I guess, noticed it because we were growing. And it just always felt like we were just going to keep growing until it changed. And so as you can see, just the number of time over time, how it's been changing. So Jason, do you mind going next one? So, you know, we've all had this discussion about why do families leave, right? So, you know, Ms. Villarreal, you've asked this many times, and I want you to know that many years ago, I kind of fell in love with this problem. And I blew up a northeast map, and I was putting pins, and I was tracking. And at that point, I started calling about 150 parents that I could track down to say, I want you to come in and meet with me. And at the time, Dr. Gotardi, the superintendent, come talk to us about why. Of that 151, I believe, I got 4 to come in. Just 4. And of those 4 that were in the room, I got 4 different reasons why they didn't. Now, this was back in, I would say, maybe 2017, at the time when we did it. We've done exit surveys, that focus group I just talked about. We've called, we've done face-to-face, you know, and not just me, by the way, and district staff. Principals have done it. I can name different principals off my top of my head who have asked these questions and staff, because what we're all trying to do is find the answer, right? Like, what is the one thing that's causing this change? Well, here's what we've heard. School class size. I'm going there because the class size is smaller. Different programs. You don't offer X, and we want X. A right fit. Programs. Rigor. It's not, my child isn't being challenged enough. And then family situations. The one thing that we learned, again through COVID, was and this was really at graduation, and our high school principals found it, is the number of parents from, the number of children from divorced families. It was much higher than we expected. Much higher. And so family situations play into it as well because, you know, they were living with dad or they were living with mom and now they're switching over. There's all sorts of those dynamics going on. I will just say this, again, I think human nature, we try to find the answer, right? We go to the doctor because we want to know what's wrong with us. The doctor very rarely tells us it's multiple things, even though it's real. Because, you know, you go in, I'm not feeling well. Well, you have X going on, right? But they may not also tell you, well, you're not exercising enough, you're overweight, you need to lose some weight. You know, they don't go into all these other reasons, right? The reason I say that is it's choice. Look at the volume of choice out there today. Ms. Villarreal, you and I have had this discussion. Why do you drive what you do, and why do I drive what I do, right? Like, I will tell you, if I were going to drive a gas truck, I would not buy one of the big 3. Absolutely not. I would drive what you drive, Mr. Hilliard. 100%. Because of reliability, dependability, and all the things that that brand is associated with, right? But because I have a diesel, I choose to drive a Ram because my brother-in-law was in the auto industry and told me it's the best diesel out there. I made a choice, right? Parents are making these choices for a variety of things. So when we talk about, and this is my opinion, when we talk about what's happening, and we all have different ideas of what's happening, I think you're all right. I don't think anybody's wrong and anyone is 100% right. I think we all have a valid piece here to say that it's a variety of things that are happening. But when you look at the amount of choice just in this area alone, and you couple it with, expenses. I mean, folks are leaving. I know a lot of people I've known have left and gone to another district, not because they were unhappy, but they want the new home because it's, they're spreading out. That's a reason, but it's not the reason. It's just another one of them. So that's really, I think that's all I have, Jason, to provide you. But I wanted to kind of give you this larger sort of picture of what the state's saying because, when Commissioner, I can remember him in 19, like, we're just exploding in growth and we have to get all of this stuff around. Now he's saying, like, look, we're slowing down and don't expect this to change. I think that's a much different narrative than what I heard. And then you couple it with birth rates dropping and him saying, like, look, do not expect enrollment to increase. That's his take. Like, he does not see this shifting anytime soon. So that's all I have. If there's questions, comments. Yeah.
I'd like to know when we started the process of using restorative discipline in our schools. Wasn't it 2013?
I don't know that answer, Ms. Villarreal. Like, I do not know. I can find you that answer.
I would like that answer because I think that has a lot to do with it. And I'm not trying to be aggressive or anything like that.
Ms. Villarreal, you're very passionate about this.
I am very passionate about it.
Please know that what I hear is your passion.
Okay.
I don't think you're being aggressive.
Okay, very good. I'm glad because, yes, I am very passionate about it. And I'm also hearing, just from my audience today that they're having problems with discipline in the school. Mm-hmm. And we are rewarding these children for being bad, essentially. They go and get cookies and, frankly, if I was a kid and I thought that cookies were in the offing, man, I could throw a desk across the room faster than anybody if I was going to get that cookie. So I think we really need to stop and take a look at this and maybe think that this woke garbage needs to be taken out of our schools because that's strictly woke. And, you do not reward a kid. That's parenting 101 or teaching 101. You don't reward a kid for being a discipline problem. And I think it's spread. I think that's one reason why our parents are leaving and taking their kids. I'm hearing it from my parents. They're not our parents. They're our parents. Okay. So when I say I'm taking ownership of this because I want to get to the bottom of it. And I think we're doing these kids a disservice by saying, hey, it's okay for you to go and have a temper tantrum in the classroom. It's not okay. And it's not okay for our teachers to have to put up with it. So I think we need to stop. Frankly, I think all of us need to have a discussion about this. And I think we need to stop rewarding these kids for throwing chairs across the room.
Can we look into that? I hear you. And I would like to know if that's really what's happening, that we're rewarding them.
No, I'm hearing it from parents. I'm hearing it from teachers. And it's called this, and I wouldn't have the name of this unless somebody had told me about it. And then I read an article about it. And it sounds all lovely and just fabulous, okay? But it's not. And if I raised my kid like this, he'd probably be in jail. So it says, according to this, it's called restorative discipline. And apparently they started as, I think it was at Ed White. This was it was the pilot program, and then everybody thought this was a great idea. Well, surprise, surprise. Then it moved over to Long Creek. Now we've got real problems. So, and then I hear from the parents in there that they're saying, oh, well, the kid gets taken out of class, and then they go down to the principal's office, and they get given a cookie. Well, I don't know any kid that's not going to get excited about throwing a chair across the room and then going down to the principal's office and getting a cookie. Okay, it's human nature. So I really think we need to take a step back and look at this, because we're running our teachers off. We're making our parents furious. I mean, we received emails and everything else telling us that this is a big, major problem. So I think we as a board really need to look at what we're doing here.
Well, I don't think it's us that can do the investigation. It needs to be Dr. Micah and his staff.
I understand that. And I'm talking about us. We need to take a look at our discipline process. We need to look at what we're doing. It's not working, okay? And that it's our jobs that we make policy. It's our jobs to take a step back and say, hey, this isn't working, okay? So I don't want to lose another child to a charter school, because we have amazing schools. If we can just take a step back and say, hey, this is not working. We need to get back to basics, and we need to stop this, because the kids have got to be able to handle themselves as they go through the process, and our teachers need to feel safe, and they don't need to be worried about what they're facing in the classroom, and the misery needs to stop. And that stops when we get control of the discipline inside of our schools.
And I hear you, and I think that that's, getting specific information to Dr. Micah so that he can have it investigated. I think it's more than some of the generalities that we've heard. So I think it's, if there's an issue out there, it needs to be sent as an email or a phone call to Dr. Micah so that he can have somebody investigate it.
Well, I'm going to stop there because I'm going to ask for something specific at the end of this, and I really think we need to take this seriously.
Okay.
Because I think our parents are done. So we just need to fix this mess.
Okay. Was there any other comments or? Thank you for bringing this back to us.
And I appreciate that. Thank you for doing this, and it helps me see the numbers and everything.
Sure.
I appreciate that. You guys did an awesome job.
Okay, item 10, new business for possible board action. A, board policy. 1, possible action regarding revisions to board policy FNG local. We had one person sign up to speak to this.
Number 9.
Good afternoon or good evening. My name is Jacqueline Klein. I just want to say that my heart goes out to the parents of Longs Creek Elementary. When I ran for school board, I talked about gun violence that was being covered up in our schools, and I would have done something about it. But the issue that I'm here to speak on tonight is the grievance process. It's broken. When you have an issue that with your child at a school, you go to the principal and you complain. If the principal doesn't resolve it, you file a grievance. And where does that grievance go? Back to the same principal. The principal that did not resolve the issue in the first place is not going to fix it the second time. This is nothing more than a stall tactic. And this is only if you are able to learn of the incident within a 10-day window, and only then are you able to file a grievance if you know that that option exists. Let me tell you how broken this system is and why I ran for school board. I know of a child in District 2 in kindergarten, 5 years old, repeated sexual contact from another 6-year-old classmate. The parents went to the school. The child was moved to a different classroom. The parents were not told that that child still had exposure to the offending child at recess, in music, at PE, and at lunch. That child was still in that same space with that other kid every day. The principal only responded to parent emails by calling them back, She was trying to handle this off the record. The child was at home, referring to themselves by racial epithets, saying that they should kill themselves, 5 years old. After 6 weeks of nothing happening, the parents refused to work with the principal any longer and went in to meet with the assistant principal on this campus. She, upon logging into the system, told the parents that no incident reports were on file. Through back channels, these parents were able to get an administrative transfer for their child to another campus. This went on for 2 months, and at no point were those parents ever made aware that a grievance process is available to them. These are anti-parent, anti-child, pro-district, protect the image at all cost processes. They are drawn out and meant to intimidate parents. Parents have to refile all of their paperwork when their grievances are denied and moved up to the next level. For solutions, I believe that grievances should go to the superior as well as the principal so that these issues are not tamped down and kept at a campus level. All decisions regarding these grievances should come down in writing because this is a formal process and it should be a matter of record. I think the district should treat parents as though their claims have validity. Why do parents only get one shot in 10 days when it oftentimes takes multiple incidents for these issues to come to their attention and before they feel brave enough to speak up? Is that my time?
Yes, thank you. Okay, Dr. Micah.
So, Mr. Hilliard, you'd asked for a change in timelines, and so I had that added. I know Mr. Jimenez, you made one small adjustment as well, correct, to F and G, and then it's really up for y'all because you guys wanted to discuss it.
That is correct. One item that I made was with number 14 on page 8, which falls under certain complaints. What number 14 states is that complaints related to issuance of criminal trespass warnings are excluded, and we wanted to strike that. So that would be the process if anyone did have a criminal trespass warning and wanted to have a complaint against that.
Okay, a question for that would be is, what if it's a community member who happens to get a CTW? They can't use this grievance process. This is parent and student, so we have to address. I would hope that we never have it.
Sure.
But we need to ensure that we have every situation
So
covered.
that would be GF.
GF.
But we need to look at GF then as
Yep.
well.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
This is
That needs to come to
just
us.
for
Correct.
within.
F and G.
I understand, but I'm just saying CTW, we need to cover all bases for anybody that may be on campus
Yes,
at
sir.
any point.
That's correct.
I don't have a significant issue with that as long as we advertise this is the process, which we can discuss, but that's good. I've got several other comments, but we can go. I don't know if there's other stuff.
Go ahead.
Well, I'll just go in order from where I start. We're on page 9 of our package.
Here, printed it.
Under the formal process. It's about halfway down the page. Currently, it says, announcement of decision in the student or parent's presence shall constitute communication of the decision. So my recommendation is we strike that entire thing, and it says all decisions by district personnel shall be in writing, including details of negotiations of relief or remedies and any relief granted. This also provides consistency because if you look on pages 11 and 12, level 2 and level 3 shall be written responses as it is. And it even talks about, at the bottom of page 11, it says, it talks about additional cases where the principal considers additional documentation at level 1 in connection with the preparation of the written response. So to me, everything should be in writing. There should be no, well, we just say this. So for consistency at level 1, 2, and 3, all decisions by district personnel shall be in writing, because that's what it already is for level 2 and 3. It says shall give a written response. So that's the first edit I would suggest, if anyone has thoughts on that. Any problems with the level 1 being in writing?
I'm going back up and reading
Okay.
that. The section that I was looking at, I don't see where it's called level 1, so that's
It's
right.
not, it's just the formal process,
Okay.
and it just says announcement of a decision in the students or parents present shall constitute communication of the decision.
I thought we did do a
I think that's the
written
general rule, but it
response.
doesn't say it has to be though. We need to make this consistent, clearly processed, that there's no room for interpretation or misunderstanding. It just as simple as it all be in writing. because that whole sentence should just be struck, in my opinion.
So basically what you're saying is we need to put in here that the decision will be in writing.
All decisions will be in writing, yes, ma'am.
And you said that was already on.
It's referenced on page 11. You'll see under level 2, it says the designated executive, this is near the bottom, it's the third paragraph of level 2. The designated executive director or director shall prepare a written response to the student or parents within 10 days of the conference. If you go to level 3, it also says the superintendent or designee shall communicate a decision in writing. So we're already doing it in writing. Level 1, it does not say that. And so that, to me, to respond, and it says to respond in writing.
It does say that under level 1.
Except where that, so we don't need that sentence. Why would we have something that says an announcement shall constitute communicating a decision? There's no problem with doing orally, but we need to just make sure that's clear, because I don't want something saying, oh, well, we don't have to give it to you in writing. It should be in writing. I think we do it in writing, but I want the language to be clean.
So we could just, on page 11, under the level 1 section, that last sentence could just read, the principal shall have 10 days following the conference within which to respond in writing, period.
Period. Yes. And that way everything's in writing. I just want to make sure everything's in writing. There's no reason it shouldn't be.
But I don't know that we need to change that up on that other page. On 9.
Okay. Well, then what's, I guess,
Because
how
to me, I was looking,
okay.
I'm not sure what that,
I don't understand the intent of it. If we're going to say an announcement of the decision and their presence communicates that actually contradicts everything else that says it'll be in writing. Because this is saying I'll give you an oral answer. So we should just strike that entire sentence, in my opinion. I do think that there should be face-to-face communication if a parent or student so requests with the level 1, 2, or 3 decider. But this, to me, is poor language.
I actually I think that's probably the reason, is to encourage face-to-face discussion. So to strike that would maybe take away a need, or this seems to require that you will discuss the decision instead of just here's a written document of the decision.
Well, then we should add along with the written decision, maybe, if we're going to do that. That's just to be perfectly clear, if we're going to go down that process. Because as it stands alone, that sentence does not say that. I understand the point you're making. I do believe there should be face-to-face.
I would encourage, I think I would want to encourage some face-to-face communication about a decision.
Then we should just add which shall include a written response. We can leave that and say which shall include a written response, as outlined later. But it needs to involve the written response, in my opinion. Do we just put comments to include a written response?
Back on, are you talking about under the formal process?
Still. Yeah, announcement of the decision and the students or parents present shall constitute communication of decision and will be included with a written response.
In addition to a written response, maybe?
In addition to a written response, that's fine.
That's fine.
In addition to, I'm good with that. In addition to a written response.
Okay.
I think that would encourage the communication you're talking about, Mrs. Huey, would ensure that they have a written response, which is what it's detailed later.
I think that communication part is
I think it's huge.
Extremely important.
I do too, 100%. Hopefully most things get resolved. A couple more. The next one on page 9, under general provisions, level 1 grievances shall be filed directly with the principal of the campus. I think we need to add something here. A principal who receives a level 1 grievance shall, within 1 district day, confirm or receive the grievance by emailing the executive director over that principal and the grievant or their representative. If they do it electronically, because we need to confirm that. And it goes kind of back to one of the comments that was made. I already had that written down. But we need to ensure that there's awareness and then the appropriate level of accountability. And then an assistant principal may perform this duty in the event of the absence of a principal, depending on the day that it was filed. But we need to have clear accountability, because if the principal's involved or doesn't do it, then this creates a problem, especially when we start talking about timelines with this stuff. I don't know what other people's thoughts are on that.
And where was that again, please?
After a level 1 grievance, I would say the next sentence, a principal who receives a level 1 grievance shall, within 1 district day, confirm receipt of the grievance by emailing the executive director over that principal, which is their boss, and the grievant or their representative. That way the grievant and them also know that it has been received. If they do it electronically, if they do a timestamp in paper, they will know. But more importantly, it's the accountability so that we have the proper oversight at each of the levels. And then I put an assistant principal may perform this duty in the event of the absence of a principal, because on any given day, a principal may be attending other meetings or something, but we need that timely filing.
Okay, so basically it's to have the principal's direct report know that a grievance has been filed.
Yes, ma'am.
But,
Doesn't that already happen?
Rudy, what happens?
Yeah, what is
Well,
the
it's not in
process?
policy, so I'm just, what happens currently, Rudy, when a grievance is filed, what is the expectation?
The expectation is to state that you received it from the level, so that would be the principal.
Right.
But it's, again, here, it's not stated in policy, but that's our practice.
Right, that they refer it over to us, correct? I mean, we get a copy of it.
We will get a copy, yes, sir.
Correct, at level 1,
Yes,
but
sir.
it's just not in policy.
And it typically goes to the executive director of school administration, like you were saying, Mr. Hilliard,
Right.
and also the executive director of student support services.
Right.
Just
So
as a record.
I think we just codify that because this is our board policy, so that becomes
Sure.
the standard. Then if
Yeah,
that's
I'm
already
just-
happening, that's great. We just
right.
need to have it written so everybody knows the
Oh, yeah.
actual
No,
thing.
I
even if it
don't
doesn't
have an
happen.
issue with it. I think, I'm just trying to figure out who it does currently so that as you're writing it, you're including the people.
Right.
that
So I
are
think
there,
it's the
right?
executive director, right? I mean, that was my
It's-
understanding.
it's two.
Or is it pupil
no.
services?
It's the executive director of school administration, which is, like you said, Mr. Hilliard, their supervisor.
Yep.
But we also include the executive director of student support services because they kind of keep a log of all of these things to ensure that there's timeliness in the process.
Okay, student support services. Okay,
So maybe the way that needs to read is the level 1 grievances shall be filed directly with the principal of the campus. And then is there a timeline that the principal generally sends that to the executive director?
It's usually right away, as soon as they get it, as soon as they're available, to your
Okay.
point. It's usually, sometimes they're handed to the office, but most of the time they're emailed to the principal. And so usually at this point, the principal will then turn that over to executive director of school administration and also executive director of student support services.
So within
Okay,
2
so
days
you
then?
could-
Are the 2 days, is it plenty of time then?
Oh, yes, sir.
Okay. 'Cause
Absolutely.
I said 1 day, I think that's, but if not 2 days, but
Okay, so we
timely.
want to say executive director of school administration and executive director of student
Support
services.
services. Yeah.
Student support services.
One of those titles.
Yeah.
yes.
And that way, that's in its sense, its own safety net, so in case of if the school administration executive director is out or vice versa,
Okay.
we've got that going
Good.
to make sure that it's
Okay.
taken care of.
Because I think that's important, that it's very clear, everyone understands who's getting in the oversight. The next one is the next 2 paragraphs. At the end, it talks about level 2, level 3, and level 4. It talks about filed directly, but it doesn't provide an email. I think we should put or by email and then put the appropriate email address there for level 2 and 3 and level 4, just what email, because most people, I think, are more inclined electronically than to hand deliver stuff nowadays, so that they know where to email, that our policy is very clear.
Can they be emailed?
Yeah, no,
At
it can
level
be
2 and 3.
electronically filed. I'm just trying to think, Mr. Hilliard, because I'm wondering if maybe we need to create the only reason I say is if we have a shift in personnel and you put in somebody's name, then we're going to constantly be coming.
So you don't have like a chief of executive support services that have their email, because previous experience in the military, the position had its own org email, and the individuals inherited it based on their position.
The Office of Executive Director of Student Support Services, so that would be Mr. Shoesmith currently. Do you see? So what I'm just saying is everybody's email is set up like y'all's. It's the first initial of your name and then first 5 of your last name, right? So I'm trying to think if we can Mr. Jarrett, maybe that's it, is that we just create
it's like our board email, right?
Correct.
But you
But
do
we create an email that says, grievances at such and such and such,
Yep.
and that's where it gets filed. And that way then, no matter who makes, as personnel changes, doesn't matter.
Right.
The email address stays the same.
Agreed.
Board members change all the time, but it's board@neisd.net.
Correct.
Stays the same. Would that suffice?
Yes, an organizational email that
Okay.
would be specific for that, I think would be excellent.
Mr. Jarrett, you got that?
Thanks, Mr. Jarrett. Next, on page 10 of our packet, under filing of and written response, we have two different timelines, and we need to be consistent. In the first paragraph, about 4 down, it talks about filing with the appropriate administrator or designee by the close of business on the timeline, and it talks about after close of business. If you go to the next paragraph, though, it talks about the end of the deadline day, the end of the deadline day. So everything needs to be either close of business, and we need to state close of business and state the time, such as 5 p.m., or we just need to say the end of the deadline day, because there's an inconsistency there. And I think I know the reason, because when this was written, hand filings, you would obviously have to file it while school is open. But the reality is different schools are open different times, versus if you do it electronically, obviously at the end of the day. But we need consistency. I say just the end of the deadline day, and then obviously hand deliver they're going to have to do during school hours. But we need consistency.
So I see that in the first paragraph. Where was it?
The second paragraph, it says filings submitted by electronic communication shall be timely sent by the end of the deadline day, which is middle of the second paragraph, Mrs.
Okay,
Verona.
by
And
the
it says
date
that-
time shown on the electronic.
Yeah, and it talks about mail being postmarked at the end of the deadline day.
So what you're saying is then in the first paragraph, we should change it to say end of the deadline day as opposed to close of business.
That's my perspective. And then obviously, people need to recognize that if they do it hand filing, you got to do it while people are at the office and the campuses are open. But if you do it electronically, because even that, it says the electronic close of the business of the deadline. So I just want us to be clear. I think I know why they did the separation with the hand filing. It makes sense, but just so that we're consistent. Everything at the end of the deadline day. Or we can leave it as is and just be very clear, but if we're going to say close of business for the hand filings, we need to set a time, because elementary, middle school, and high school close at different time, and then we know staff is there later to certain times. But but we just need to be consistent if we're going to do that, because otherwise a parent that's an elementary school parent might go, well, I have till 5 p.m., but the staff leaves at 4 p.m. because they got out at 2:40, versus the high school maybe they're till 5:30. But we just need consistency is my real point. So I'm open to ideas, but I just say end of the business day, like everybody, or end of the deadline day, like it says elsewhere.
I think that's fine to be consistent in the wording. Does anybody have any concerns about that?
All right, awesome. A couple more, but these should be quick ones, I think. On page 11 of our package, under level 1, halfway down, you'll see it says C, F, and G exhibit. It says, if necessary, the principal may assist. I think we need to say that if necessary, the principal shall assist. They will do that collaborative partnering with parents. They will help them complete the form and do everything that they need to do to file it so that it's done correctly. It's not a may. To me, it's a shall, because that's serving our community members and helping them get it right. That's my opinion.
So you want to take off if necessary?
No, get rid of the word may and change it to shall. It's not an option. The principal shall assist the student or parent. Not may, they shall assist. Just very clear language. Shall is a mandatory word, may is an optional word.
But to me, if necessary is optional. So if necessary, the principal may help. So I think if you're going to make it mandatory, then in my opinion, you've got to get rid of the if necessary.
That's fine. Then we can get rid of the if necessary and say the principal shall assist the
But,
student.
I mean,
if requested. I mean,
yeah,
And
that's,
maybe
that's
that's
what, I think that's the key, Mr. Like I'm reading like
Yeah.
if necessary, if requested, I think is the term.
if requested, the
Right.
principal shall assist. I mean, that's fine if requested, because
Right.
because obviously not everyone's going to request it, but if it is, then they will indeed do it.
that's fine.
Okay? Yeah.
So what if the grievance is against the principal?
Well, that goes back to the same issue, which is the reason we need the reporting to the next level, and that's where you're going to have a little bit of a conundrum, and that's one of those things where they can either reach out to an assistant principal, or possibly email.
But they may not ask for
Well,
assistance.
Well, they may not.
If
No.
requested.
But that's the whole issue.
But Ms. Williams, to that point, sometimes if the grievance is against the parent and so forth, we'll actually assign someone different than the principal to hear it. So that's the thing is, again, so much of who hears it sometimes is about, can they even grant the relief that's being asked? All right. So there's a lot of moving pieces there.
But your point's well taken, Ms. Williams, because if it is about the principal, then that becomes obviously the issue, and that, that piece needs to be figured out.
And so going back to page 9, on the level 1 grievances, I want to make sure that we got in there that the notification of the receipt also acknowledges the person submitting the grievance, so that person receives an acknowledgement that their grievance was received.
Yeah.
And I think we missed that in the wrap-up. I know you said it.
Yeah, and the grievant or the representative will receive that confirmation receipt in addition to the 2 executive directors.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, are you talking about if it's emailed? They're good.
Any method.
Any
There
method.
should be a confirmation of receipt.
Just saying, we received your grievance filed on this date. Doesn't need to go into specifics, obviously, because some of that stuff's sensitive, could be FERPA data, but it's acknowledgement to the grievant that it's been received, and then obviously up to the executive directors.
By email, or how are you going to?
Date stamp
I
is
mean-
hand delivered. Is that what we're saying?
Copy of it, and if
Yeah,
they deliver
well, I
it
would
in
say
the
the
office-
date stamp for the hand, but if it's emailed, then they need to reply that the principal actually read it and acknowledged it. So via email response, because my guess is most of them are done by email. I don't know that for a fact, but yeah, it would be an email response. Obviously, if the time date stamp on the paper copy, that would be confirmation that it was logged in at the school. But
Actually, we get quite a few hand delivered
okay,
to the campus.
well then, do we need to? Do we want to follow up all with an email then, regardless of whether it's hand stamped or not? Just saying, thank you, we received your either hand copy on this date, or we received your electronic filing on this date, and that way they get a consistent response from the principal.
Well, what is the process now if somebody hand delivers a grievance to a campus and are they getting a copy of it with the date stamp on it? Do you know?
I don't believe that they get a copy of the grievant doesn't, I don't believe, get a copy back. Typically, when they receive it, they'll stamp it at that point. I don't see, just for consistency's sake, I really don't see a problem with the principal sending an email, just like they would if it was emailed to them. I mean, that's just acknowledgement, because we need to let the executive director of school administration and also the executive director of pupil personnel services. I've been saying student support services because I'm reading it right off of here. We need to make that change also. It's pupil personnel services, not student support services. My apologies on that. So to me, at that point, there's acknowledgement happening either way. It's going to have to happen, and we can add in the grievant if necessary, if there's an email address. And I know there's a space for that at that point. Absent that email address, then we would probably have to give them a phone call and say, just want to make sure that you understand that we received it.
But email is the default, and I think that's consistent
Right.
and reliable. I think most people hopefully will put their email on there, if not all of them.
We're going to be, the principal's going to be doing the email anyway to their supervisor and student support services, and they can add that other. Absent that, we would need to somehow let them know that we did receive it.
Because I guess I'm just thinking if they're hand delivering it, they know it's been received, so is that?
But you don't get a
But you
copy
don't get a copy.
unless you ask for it. That you do not get a copy from the principal.
Right.
They hand stamp it and they keep it. But once again, that's why you take all of your own copies as a parent or a grievant. They don't give you anything, so it's upon you to do that, and then to know to request, can I please get a copy of the time date stamp if you do a paper copy. They are not, by default, they're not doing that, from my understanding.
And again, unless that's the direction that we want to go with, maybe making a copy of the first page, with that stamp, and then giving it back to them. I mean, that's another way, another method that we could do that. And a lot of times the principal may not be there when they're received and the front office staff gets it. That could be process.
That's why I think the email, because in the day, the principal is the responsible person
Sure.
for level one, and then they own it, even if they're, once again, they may be absent at that particular moment, but that ensures that accountability piece.
Yeah, that's as long as we have a valid email on file. That's my only concern, is that phone numbers tend to not change anymore, but email addresses do. And we may have thought we confirmed something with a parent through an if they listed their email, we're great. But if they didn't, I'm just
saying via email
I
or
don't
or
wanna
phone
say
contact.
that, oh yeah, well, we contacted you, and the parent says that's not my email address. Like, I don't. To me, look, we got to confirm we have a receipt. I mean, anytime I ever got one, I didn't get a lot, but when I did, I always said I've received, right? Like something. So I think we got to come up with some response from someone or something that this has been filed correctly, right?
Yep. Yep. So. Okay. I think you had something you wanted to add while we were here on this page 9.
On page 9,
Okay.
right. So the last paragraph says failure to file a grievance with the appropriate district official listed above shall not constitute proper filing, and the applicable timeline for inappropriate filing shall continue to run and not be told in any way. And so what I just heard the exchange, Dr. Micah, between you and Mr. Jimenez, was that sometimes these are delivered to the school district. And so this is this appropriate if the grievance is with the principal and the grievant chooses to deliver it to the district office? This says that their grievance is no longer valid if they skip level 1.
Yeah. So I think, and I see. So no, if they don't file it at the campus, it's not an appropriate filing per this policy as the way it's written right now. All right. But listening to Mr. Jimenez, this says clearly filed directly with the principal. But sometimes office staff is taking receipt of it, so it's not directly with the principal. The problem is you can't word it to campus staff, because that could mean they filed it with a teacher, and we may not know, right? So I'm just wondering, how do you write it, to your point, that, if your grievance is against the principal, you can go to the assistant principal, and that constitutes a good filing. Or you go to the principal secretary and you hand it in like that. You've submitted it to the campus.
Directly with you could just say with the principal, the assistant principal, or the campus administration staff.
Or campus designee, maybe.
Or campus designee, but to be very clear, because once again.
Right. And I'm not worried at elementary.
Right.
I'm more worried at a high school where it's, and someone up there takes it and somehow the process broke down because, people are busy or whatever. I want to make sure that we word it in a sense that gives, like, look, the principal, assistant principal, or campus designee, because that could then be the secretary that's permitted to do it, and that still constitutes a good filing, right? Like, it shouldn't be, because as I read it, I can see where an argument could be, well, I filed it, but it wasn't with the principal, and someone tried to, I'm not aware of ever doing it, but I could see it could potentially happen, right?
Or like in a high school where there's students at the desk
Yeah,
in the office.
yeah. Well, yeah, and that's, I can't take receipt, right?
But I think we also have to look at intent as well. If we leave it at the principal level, and I think also what's needed is a lot of education on the grievance process. There might be parents, there might be students, there might be teachers who don't understand, the steps of the grievance process. But if you leave it at the principal level, and that letter or envelope or whatever it is addressed to that principal, then it's clear that the intent was that the principal should get it, not the.
Agree, but if the principal's not there that day, then would the assistant principal be appropriate?
Yeah, I mean, the assistant principal takes over, to my knowledge, when the principal's not there, and then forwards it to the.
But I think to the education point, which we'll get to later, I think we need to prominently post this not only on the board website but elsewhere, because I think many people have no idea as we've heard, some of these people have no idea about the process. We hope that it doesn't get to the formal process, but if it does, we need to make sure people understand and can easily find it, because I don't think a lot of people do understand it. Hopefully informally is how we can do everything at the lowest level, but sometimes it unfortunately doesn't get there. But I think we need to have the clarity on that, because A, if a principal ever is in question, that becomes one, or B, if they're off campus, we need to still have a way so it's clear, to Mrs. Landry's point about proper filing. You don't put it at the right office.
Yeah, because it's hard to say, okay, if the principal's not there to put in here, principal's not there, go to assistant principal. Okay, if the assistant principal's not there, go to the secretary. Well, if the secretaries, you can keep going. But I think if you leave it at that high level, then you know what the intent is, and then there's a responsibility to get that to that principal.
Agreed 100% with that. It's just that sometimes they could just say, oh, it wasn't proper because you didn't do it because they didn't get in time. And so as long as we have to, what's written matters, because sometimes it gets lost when you have lots of different people's interpretation of it in the grievance process. So.
Right. So regardless of how we indicate, I think this last paragraph needs to be either removed or modified to ensure that the grievance process can be followed through regardless of, now obviously if you give it to the kid at the attendance office, you're not going to have the appropriate filing, but if you give it to someone, even if it goes to level 2 first because of fear of retaliation or fear of the principal being the person that you're filing the grievance against, then we should be okay, and we should have that as an option to deliver it to the executive offices as well.
Have we ever had an example where somebody wanted to file against a principal, but they didn't want to do it at campus, and so they brought it to central office? And did we say we couldn't? I mean, do you know if we've ever done that and said we can't accept it? Or
I don't know that, if that's occurred, but if somebody were to send it to me and it was a level 1, I would ensure that that principal got it. I think
that it went back.
That it went back, absolutely, with that time. And I would let the parent or student know that it needs to be filed there, but I'm doing it on their behalf, giving it to them. I mean, we certainly, but again, from the 3 years that I've been here, I haven't had that, but if that were to happen, that's what I would do.
The other trade-off I would offer is, quite frankly, if the person at that level can't give the relief, then it should automatically be elevated, and that doesn't happen right now. If there's an issue and somebody wants to talk about a big, large issue that a principal can't decide because it's a district-wide issue, that immediately needs to get kicked up, but that's not what the process says, because now they just spend 10 days, but a principal can't grant the relief or remedies. So we don't have a caveat in this current F&G that says it will automatically be put to the appropriate administrative level that can grant the remedies requested. Sometimes it's split remedies, sometimes it's a principal might, but some are at district level that are beyond the scope of a principal's authority and scope. So that's another issue with some of this that we need to think through as well, I would offer.
Yes, sir, and I think in practice, that is definitely something that we look at if a principal cannot grant those remedies. However, it's like, to your point, it's not in writing here, and so that's something that we can look at. But
yeah,
but then we'll have conversations about that.
You want to go first? I'm just going back to this piece of level 1 grievances shall be filed directly with the principal. I wonder if we can say it, and I heard you, Ms. Williams, and is to say that it's filed. The level 1 grievances shall be filed with campus administration. And addressed to the principal, something like that.
And then the principal shall notify within 1 day.
Correct. Do you see, like, it can be filed with administration, addressed to the principal. That satisfies your piece, right, Ms. Williams? That way then, no matter who, it's filed at the administration, whoever that is, and then that principal is then to notify them.
Which is back to Mrs. Williams'
Correct.
point. And then,
right?
Yes.
My only comment about this is for students and parents, and if a student is filing this, are they gonna know, and maybe they are, but are they gonna know who administration is? If it says campus administration,
You could put in parentheses, I guess.
Principal.
Assistant principal, something like that.
I just wanna make it as easy as possible and not
Yeah, that's a good point.
prevent a barrier to.
No, that's,
Yeah.
spelling it out is very good.
Level 1 grievances shall be filed directly with campus administration, parentheses, principal, assistant principal. Addressed to the principal of the campus, something like that, right?
So if a level 1 cannot be, if the remedies cannot be granted at level 1, it then goes to a level 2, but the parent has to then submit the level 2, correct?
Correct. They'll get probably a response that says unable to grant remedies, grievance denied.
And so you
And then
can
you have to
then-
refile, and the clock's still running.
So what you're saying is you want to be able to say, if it can't be granted at level 1, you want it to automatically go to a level 2?
To me, that makes sense. To the appropriate administrative level, I can grant the remedies, because there are certain authorities that only Dr. Micah can grant. There are certain ones that the executive director of service can, certain things the principal can, right? It's a cascading hierarchy. And if a principal can't grant a remedy for that particular issue, then what's the point of them even, I don't want to say what's the point of them addressing it. They have no authority in that thing, so that time should be spent at the appropriate level to look into the concerns.
But
try
they
and
get
a remedy.
another 10 days when they file the level 2, right?
They do, but you're just repeating the process, is what I would offer.
Well, I'm just saying
Yeah.
that it's not, they're not short on time.
No, but you're making it a cumbersome process.
I understand, but
Mhm.
I'm just,
Oh,
I'm
sorry, go
trying to
ahead. Yeah.
clarify that. So how would you even word that?
I think it's very simple. If the current level decision maker, decider, is unable to grant requested remedies, it's immediately elevated to the next appropriate decision level for decision making at levels 1, 2, and 3. The board one's a separate one, because the board is separate when it comes to us.
So I want to make, I'm really trying to listen attentively here. So this is only in the circumstance that the grievance is asking for a remedy that can be granted at only at a higher level.
Yes, sir.
But not in a case where maybe they're asking for 4 different remedies. One can be addressed at the level 1.
So in that case,
at that point, we would follow the level 1.
follow
2,
level
3.
1, address the remedies
Right.
that you can,
Okay.
and then say we can't do level 4. If you're not happy, you can file the next level.
Correct.
Yeah, it's
So-
only if the totality of remedies
Right,
can.
that's what I just want to make sure I because I want to be clear on, because I was thinking, are we going to jump? But that's not what you're saying.
No,
You're
if it can be
saying, like, look, if some of these things can be addressed, you follow the process. But if they can't be addressed, it should be elevated up the chain, correct? Like, if it can't be, if the principal has no authority to issue a district-wide training.
Right.
Well, then why are we hearing it at level 1? That should go to a...
Correct. It's a totality. If
Correct.
if it's partial, they grant what they can. They say, I can't, you can go to the next level.
Dr. Micah, can I make a suggestion? There's a lot of detail going on tonight with a lot of suggested changes, and I think there's even more coming. Could I just maybe throw it out that we pause this discussion and instead have a board workshop so that maybe like staff that's been here since dark 30 could go home? And it sounds like there's a lot of deep discussion that wants to be held on this issue. And maybe we could set aside a time to devote more time to it. Because at the very least, it's going to have to come back anyway. There's been so many suggestions made tonight for a vote.
I only had 2 other small ones, but I hear the point, Ms. Huey, but I would say I've got 2 ones that are real short. I don't know if Ms. Nair or anybody else does, and then see if they can work with it. And if not, then we can do a board workshop. But obviously, getting this updated, I think would be good. But I like the discussion, but same time.
We're having a great discussion, and I think that it would be really great, though, to be able to have the luxury of time to have this discussion.
I think what he's saying is he's almost,
Yeah.
I think
Okay.
he's,
Okay.
So
Well, and I have a few that may get lengthy as well.
Okay. I'll just throw the two out just so people have awareness so we can start thinking about this. Page 12, under the superintendent area, it says there's no time limit for the superintendent to respond. I just wrote within 10 days, got rid of the word after, 10 days of the conference, the superintendent or designee shall communicate the decision in writing. That's just back to everything else we talked about being consistent and keeping the timeline moving. We owe that same, we're expecting 10 days from a parent or student. They should get a response within 10 days. Because once again, there'll be no new evidence, no new information, any of that stuff. So it should be very clear at the end that that's done. There should be a timeline with it. And then the last one is on the last page, 13. And I would just say the last sentence is, it says no new evidence, claims, or complaints may be presented at this level. It's fine. I think it should change to say neither party may present new evidence, claims, or complaints at this level to make sure that both the district staff and or the parent or student grievant, nothing's new added because it should have been done. Everything's at level 1 for the parent, so no new evidence. So everything the district should have done, they'll have had 3 opportunities. They should have figured out if there's any concerns, issues, evidence. But you can't play, it's got to be consistent throughout. Those are my other changes that we could have later discussion on, but just to clean up the process, in my opinion. Thank you. That's it for me.
Okay. So what, are we going to keep going, or do we want to bring this back and have a workshop? Because we do have a special board meeting at the end of March.
I don't know. I would almost say that or submit specific wording if we have it to Dr. Micah to compile, because I know Ms. Larry may have some. And then that way we're maybe more efficient with it. There may be some discussion points on some of the specificity, but at least we can put the recommended language here so we have a working draft. And then obviously some of the language you talked about that you've come up with as well that we can highlight and figure out what looks best.
Yeah, I mean, if you all want to send me what you're wanting to include, we'll do just what we always do. We can just manage this policy and put it in blue and strike in red and say, here you go for your consideration.
Yeah.
I would love that.
And that way then
that way we can all look at it and
correct. Then it's like any regular board meeting. You get the stuff ahead of time and you can review it and then you can come. That's fine. Well,
I think
we
that'd
can
be great.
do that.
I really like the idea of having a work session because I think some of the rest of us would like to participate in the discussion, and that would give us an opportunity to maybe go. I mean, we're really getting into the weeds and into the micro detail here. So I think the rest of us, after reviewing things, might be able to participate better in the discussion.
And I don't know if this would be appropriate, excuse me, to do at that time as well, but maybe also have a presentation which would be a way to educate, have a presentation on the grievance process.
As part of the work session?
You're saying to present to the community and people watching so they understand it?
Yes.
I think it's a great idea.
Okay. All right. So we're going to take no action on this, and we're going to submit any possible language to Dr. Micah or to Peggy.
If I could, if you all could get it to us in the next few days, maybe by Thursday, just to give Peggy and Yvonne some time to compile it. Sure. And that way then...
Oh, yeah, because it's spring break next
correct.
week.
Spring break's coming up, right?
I really wouldn't want them doing this over spring break.
No. And so that way then we have some time, and then we can get it to you, the week
of the 20th.
Right after we come back. And so then you'll have some time to review it as a board, right? And then you can have your workshop.
Okay.
Great.
All right. Item 2, possible action regarding proposed revisions to board policy FFAC local. Mr. Villarreal.
Yes, Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Mike, executive staff, and guests. I call on Emma Kelly, our Director of Health Services, to talk about this topic.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Micah, executive staff, and guests. I'm here tonight to discuss making naloxone, which is an opioid antagonist medication available on any ISD campuses. This medication reverses the effects of an opioid-related drug overdose. You may have heard of Narcan. Narcan is simply one particular brand of the medication naloxone. Any ISD wishes to obtain authorization consistent with Texas law for certain trained school personnel to administer this medication in response to a suspected drug overdose occurring at school. We have all heard recently news reports about an increase in opioid use in the community, and we're proposing to make the antagonist medication available in schools to decrease the adverse impact of opioids. The medication itself, I'll talk about in a little bit, is very safe and available widely throughout the community, but this is just specifically to impact anything that were to occur on a school campus. So from 2020 to 2021, there was an increase of about 80% in the synthetic opioid-related deaths in Texas. Synthetic opioids are those which are chemically made. Some of them are for reasonable medical purposes, but some of them are made for illegal use. One synthetic opioid getting a lot of attention recently is fentanyl. Sadly, just nearby in Texas, Hays County has experienced the deaths of several students related to fentanyl overdoses. Most opioid-related deaths in children, those under the age of 18, do involve a synthetic opioid. Fentanyl, as you've heard from Dr. Micah and other media outlets, is so dangerous because it is very potent in a very small dose. So someone experiencing an opioid overdose needs immediate intervention. It truly is a medical emergency. Overdose is a much different situation than someone who's under the influence of a substance. During an overdose, the individual's breathing slows, which decreases the amount of oxygen being delivered throughout the body to the brain, the heart, and other vital organs. Serious effects are seen in a very short amount of time. So 3 to 5 minutes without oxygen causes the beginnings of brain damage, which can lead to death, and really immediate reversal of the overdose is necessary to prevent organ damage, organ failure, and potentially death. Because of how quickly this can happen, it would be very beneficial to be able to respond to someone experiencing an opioid overdose right away without needing to wait for EMS to respond to administer that to that individual. And then this is just a little graphic showing how opioid overdoses occur, and then we'll talk about how naloxone works. Opioids attach to receptors in the brain, and they do several things. They cause pain relief, especially in situations where someone has been prescribed an opioid. They also cause decreases in breathing and changes in responsiveness. When too many opioids attach to those receptors, that's when you are starting to see symptoms of an overdose. And then naloxone works by knocking the opioid off the receptor, reversing the effects, and then also blocking it from any other opioids attaching to that receptor. So a way it's commonly described is like a master key being inserted into a lock and then broken off. There's no way for another key to then fit into that lock while it's blocking it. FFAC Legal already allows for school districts to store and administer an opioid antagonist. Revisions to the local policy have been submitted for your review. Under Texas law, a person acting in good faith would have immunity from liability for their decision to either administer or not administer an opioid antagonist. In life-threatening emergencies, any delay in care can be detrimental. And when I'm saying life-threatening emergencies, really, it's a very small, very specific group of things that can happen. For example, epinephrine for a possible allergic anaphylactic emergency, naloxone for a possible overdose emergency, or beginning CPR for someone who has lost pulse and respirations. If naloxone were to be administered, a student's parent or guardian would be notified just as soon as were possible. You know, we have to kind of consider that there could be two different situations. If someone were by themselves and came upon an individual that looked like they were experiencing an opioid overdose, we would want them to begin care and respond to that person, make sure that they're stable and EMS is on the way, and then reach out to their parent or guardian. However, if it were in a typical school day setting with lots of people around, then right away they could reach out to someone else nearby to contact the parent or guardian right away. And so when we look at the proposed process, the individuals who would be trained would be the clinic staff, so the registered nurses, the LVNs, and the clinic assistants, the athletic trainers, and the Northeast Police Department officers. Naloxone would be stored in two different locations on the clinic, on the campus, one box in the clinic, and then another box where the unassigned epinephrine is stored. So this is already a location on each campus that campus staff are aware of because that's where their emergency unassigned epinephrine is stored, and it would be in that same location which is accessible to those trained individuals. We were able to request naloxone through a program managed by the UT Health School of Nursing. That program receives grant funding, and the naloxone can be provided to any ISD at no cost. Training to the individuals mentioned above would include how to identify signs and symptoms of an opioid drug overdose, administration instructions, and the additional steps of the process to ensure the individual is receiving the care that they need. The Narcan that we've been given access to through the grant program is a nasal spray, and this is actually what it can look like. It's very small, but it really is a nasal spray just like allergy nasal spray that someone would use. The administration is the same. Yes. There's no putting any pieces together or doing anything to reconstitute a medication. It's ready to go. It's a one-dose formulation. You're not having to make any choices about the dose before administering. It's very easy to use. It is quick and effective. Narcan is safe. If someone who received Narcan ended up not being in an opioid overdose, it would still be safe for them to have received it. It wouldn't cause them harm if they received it and then we find out later on that they were experiencing some other emergency and didn't in fact have an opioid overdose. And then I'm happy to answer any questions that anyone has.
I just wanted to comment, if this saves one child's life, it's just stunning. This district's always been very cutting edge when it comes to protecting our children and saving our children, evidenced by the CPR training, the AEDs on campus before they were ever required by law, all the other things that we put in place to help our students. So this, to me, is incredible. The fact that the grant is going to cover the cost is even better, but I can't help but think saving a child's life would be worth it all the time.
I had one question. That's a good point, Ms. Joey. If we approve this tonight, what's the timeline for training and then deployment out to the campuses?
So really, we have everything ready to go if it were to be approved. So we have training ready to begin tomorrow, distribution of Narcan ready to begin tomorrow morning. We will be getting a standing order signed by Dr. Reddick from our Medical Advisory Committee. He's aware of how this process will work and is ready to sign that order tomorrow, if approved.
And they stay under lock and key except for when they're needed, is that correct?
So
or they're secure locations?
They're in a secure location, but they are accessible so that the person who is needing to retrieve it, to administer it, isn't having to go through extra hurdles in order to get it right away.
Okay. but it's limited access, not just anybody in any staff member, student,
Right.
person's going to walk by and know where to get it.
Right.
Okay, no, that's it. Thank you. It's great if we can save one life. Hopefully we never have that, but.
That's right. So if we sign off on this tonight, you said that you have everything ready to go. How quickly would how quickly could everybody be trained? Would it be just one class and everybody goes in there or is it multiple? Or how's this going to work?
So it would really be sent out to the different groups. We'd be training each different group as one group. So the nurses, the clinic assistants, the police officers, and the trainers. But really by the end of this week, people on every campus could be trained.
Excellent.
So I just think this is a sad situation that we have to be concerned about our students, excuse me, ODing on a drug. It reminds me of the 60s, the 70s, things like that. I don't know, but I think there's probably other drugs out there as well that they may be experimenting with, that we may or may not know about. I don't know if we have remedies or have looked at remedies to help with that. Surely the EpiPen for allergies, CPR. But now we're trying to, which is a good thing, help prevent death from and I'm assuming it's an illegal drug.
So opioids really there are legal opioids which are prescribed by medical practitioners to treat really serious and impactful conditions. And there are times when those lawful use of opioids can still cause an overdose emergency. So someone who has been prescribed a medication and isn't quite aware of how it may impact another medication that they're taking or the timeline of how long that drug is active in their system, and they may accidentally kind of piggyback doses, and then before they know it, they're in a situation where they have more active drug in their system than they intended to. And so really the naloxone allows for the treatment of any opioid overdose emergency, whether it was from lawful, reasonable use that just got out of hand or illicit, unlawful use.
So if it's, say, an accidental overdose, would this remedy be available for teachers or staff?
The proposed changes allow for anyone on a school campus who were exhibiting those signs and symptoms.
Thank you.
So do we know what the shelf life is on the product?
About 18 months is generally the product that's currently being provided. Has an expiration date about 18 months out, and that's fairly typical, 18 to 24 months.
And then once that expires, will the grant cover more doses?
That isn't a guarantee, but the grant is written to extend for many, many years, but it's not a promise, I think.
And do we know what the cost is?
Actually,
obviously not more than the life, but.
No, but I know just what you're asking. The cost of Narcan has actually really plummeted recently because the push from healthcare providers has been for anyone who's prescribed an opioid to also be prescribed a dose of naloxone, so that if an accidental overdose were to occur. And for that reason, there are multiple manufacturers who are working to make it much more available and more accessible to the public to decrease the chance of an overdose death. So you have seen the price of naloxone coming down quite a bit, and even outside of this grant, there are a few programs within our community alone that do provide free naloxone.
So long-term, it's sustainable.
It really seems like it will continue to be something that we'll be able to find.
I would almost, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I just have one last question. So it will be available at all levels, elementary, middle school, and high school?
Yes, and just to be clear, that is not because anyone anticipates an elementary student having an opioid overdose emergency. It's really that so many of these situations are entirely accidental. And if we can respond to anyone who's on one of the campuses and help them and get them the care that they're needing in an emergency, then that's why we'd
Sure.
like to stock it on every campus.
So it could even be a parent.
It could. Yes.
Well, and as I said earlier, Northeast has always been extremely proactive in these measures, and I would almost anticipate that if we don't see it in this session, we're going to see it in the next session, that we will be required to have this on campuses as we've been required to have AEDs, and fortunately we already did, and CPR training and Heimlich training, which, look at that, Heimlich training just saved one of our students, one of our incredible police officers saved a life the other day because of their Heimlich training. So I would anticipate that we'll see it, and once again, Northeast will be ahead of the curve on this. So thank you so much for putting all this together.
Thank you.
Emma, correct me if I'm wrong, but fentanyl, the real scare there is you don't have to ingest it. You can just come in contact with it, correct?
So that is true. Now, for responders, fentanyl is not rapidly absorbed through the skin. So for someone who's responding to an individual who's unresponsive and you think
No,
they may
but
have...
what I'm saying is I'm going back to my days as principal.
Yes.
I don't know the number of times that I checked a baggie and reached my hand in or pulled things out trying to ascertain what they are. I mean, that could lead to a possible problem, correct?
I think potentially, yes.
Because I'm thinking like our police officers and those that are handling. So to your point, this isn't just kids. This is for everyone, because somebody comes into contact with this stuff, it could be a trigger or reaction, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
And in illicit substances, someone may be using an opioid without knowing that they are. Something may have been laced with something, and so that may not be someone's intention, but that may be what they're dealing with.
Any other questions for Emma? All right, do I have a motion to approve the revised board policy FFAC local wellness and health services medical treatment as submitted?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Hilliard. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Villarreal. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, the motion carries. Thank you, Emma. Item B, Business Services 1, possible action regarding TEA security environment authorization. Mr. Villarreal.
Yes, Madam President. We're requesting tonight for the Board of Trustees to authorize Stephanie A. Tucker, our Senior Appeals Manager, to act as the Superintendent designee for approving staff requests. I apologize, we'd have a typo. It should say March 7, 2023 to January 31st, 2024.
Okay.
So we can say that in our potential approval.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Does anybody have any questions?
That
about
was my
this?
question. The date didn't quite make sense. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Do I have a motion to, or were there any other questions?
Just clarification, so you need that date correction in the motion, is what okay, all right, I just want to.
Okay. Do I have a motion to authorize Stephanie A. Tucker, NEISD Senior PEMS Manager, to act as the superintendent designee for approving staff requests, also referred to as submitting requests to TEA for access to one or more TEA web applications accessed through the TEASE. This authorization is valid for the period starting March 7, 2023 to January 31, 2024.
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Landry. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Item C, consent. 1, business services. A, bid items. B, 50,000 purchases. 2, minutes from February 2023. 3, end of consent. Do I have a board member wishing to pull an item from consent? Okay. Do I have a motion to approve consent?
So moved, Madam President.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Item 11, reports. A, interim financial and management reports. B, awarded bid report. C, federal grants report. D, second quarter donations report. E, open records request report. F, FNG grievance comparison report. Those have all been provided for you.
Madam President, I have a question on A, the interim financials, if I could ask that, please.
Sure.
Looking at the interim financials, it's page A or subsection A for, I guess, January 31. I just want to make sure I'm understanding this right. It's showing our $542 million budget for the fiscal year. Currently, we're at $509 million, which is 94%, which is almost about $100 million more than last year. So we've got 5 months left. Are we going to bust the budget at the current rate, or are we waiting on something that I don't know? Mrs. Lockhart, I think you got selected.
Could you repeat that one more time?
So we're at 94% of the budget. We're at $509 million year-to-date actual.
You're talking about revenue, right?
Yes, the general fund.
Yes. So if we go over that revenue budget, if we bust the revenue budget,
my question is,
we're just going to run to the bank and be happy.
well, is that going to become from more higher property taxes, or we're $100 million ahead of last year? So how is that happening? I guess.
So it honestly freaked me out completely. I had a heart attack at my desk the other day, last month. So a lot more people paid their property taxes in December of 22 compared to December of 21. And so it's a timing thing.
Okay.
And in a prior year, it looked more like what we see this year. And so we just got a lot more collections in December, which meant we got the money from the county in January. And so it's just, I guess more companies gave Christmas bonuses and people just paid a little earlier this year than they had in the past, to the tune of $100 million.
Okay, because I mean that's a huge difference, right? So are we going to see that propagate out, or is it just still going to end up being about $542 million, plus or minus?
It'll trickle down and not, it's not new money, it's just timing.
And
okay.
Traditionally, January 31st is the last day to pay before it goes delinquent. But like Susie was saying, this year, for some reason, most of the people paid in December. A lot of the people paid in December.
So it's up in the January interims versus the February interims. Okay, we're way ahead, and
I know.
Okay, that's the only question. Thanks, Madam President. Thank you for the answer.
Okay. Item 12, discussion and possible action regarding board members' requests for items to be placed on a future agenda and our request for reports from the administration. Do I have a board member wishing for something?
I do. I have two.
Okay.
Okay, first of all, I was one of the lucky ones that got to go to Galveston, and they brought up a really good point about suicide rates. It absolutely scared me, the bejesus out of me, okay? So what I would like is a detailed report on regarding what we were doing about suicide prevention. Also, and this is to put something on, I would like a discussion and possible action regarding a review of our disciplinary policy. I think this is something that we need to really talk about because what we're doing is not working.
Okay.
So you want to bring the discipline policy on a future agenda?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Okay, is
So
there
I'm
a
gonna have
motion in there, though? I'm trying to determine the motion.
Okay, I'm probably not saying this right, sorry.
You move to.
I move to, okay, let's see, so I guess I would have to put it, I move to have a discussion about a possible action regarding a review of our disciplinary policy. Is that okay, sorta?
Yeah.
Kinda, maybe?
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, so just to clarify, what you're wanting to do is bring forth that policy to talk, I mean, are there some specific things that
Yes.
you have concerns about?
Yes, I'm concerned about this, this thing called, let me see, restorative discipline. Okay, I really want to talk about that.
Okay.
And,
Is this, you're talking about discussion of a current policy?
well,
Could
the,
it be piggybacked then on that work session that we have about policy?
oh, that could work.
Okay.
I just need to, we just need to discuss
Just a
it
thought.
because
I mean,
I just think, since 2013, we're having some real problems, and I think that we just need to take it out, dust it off, and look at it with a clinical eye.
Okay, so
And,
we can bring that back on, because a future agenda would be March 27th. So we can,
But that gives staff enough time to get together data.
well, basically,
or-
it's just
or look
pulling
at
the policy. That's,
Well, and there's 2 reports tied to that I think will help, because I'd like to see the data so that we make an informed decision based on information as well.
Can we find out if Dr. Mike?
I was
Dr.
going to say,
Mike
so
is-
March 27th may not be enough time, but
Right.
Well, but, okay, so I'm gonna try to make sure I know what you're asking for. So Mr. Hilliard, I heard you say the data. So, so the discipline data, correct?
Well, yeah, I would say discipline by category, broken down by elementary, middle, and high school, and the different subcategories of what type of discipline it is. And the other thing is the number of campuses using restorative discipline as part of their discipline processes. Is it 0, 5, 50, 75?
Sure.
So those 2 pieces, but let's see with the actual, like a 3, at least probably a 5-year, because I know a year and a half we kind of lost in 2021, but like a 5-year trend to see what type of discipline issues, kind of like we saw with the F&G grievances, where we're looking
Right.
at.
Yeah, I know. Because the reason I asked that is we always bring you the discipline
I was thinking-
at the TAPR report, right? And so I was thinking, well, we could just pull that. But what you're asking for is not the TAPR. It's a much more detailed report.
But I assume it's all in PEMS data, is that correct?
Yeah, I'm looking at Mr. Shoesmith. I mean, I don't know how easy that is to pull and in time. That's all.
Once we have the specifics on what you're requesting, I think we can definitely pull the data. We have it all available for the most part.
Okay. So we can pull it by category, by campus.
Yes, sir.
Fairly quickly.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So there you go.
Yeah, that way we can see
Yeah.
what type of issues we're having, and if
I have
it's
no problem in
localized
fulfilling
or if it's
Yeah.
across the district, because
Sure.
it may just be certain places that are having, but.
okay, thank you. Okay, so I had a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Item 13, adjournment, and the time is 9:17. Thank you, everyone, for being here.